So, today we're going to talk about the Transformational Leadership Framework, and we're going to connect that to the indicators of the Texas Principal Standards and discuss its implications on school improvement. So, before we can get into that, we're going to talk about what the Transformational Leadership Framework is, which the Transformational Leadership Framework is a series of high leverage actions that principals can use in order to drive change and improvement within their schools. These are research based and have been implemented in plenty of lower performing schools. And as such, if lower performing schools can use them to drive change, schools across the achievement spectrum can implement them in order to truly drive transformation within the schools. Um, this framework is a sequence that provide proven results, that builds in sustainability, and has a direct influence on student growth and achievement. When we look at the structure of the transformational framework, um, there's 5 categories that are centered around in which we see highly effective schools. Those 5 categories include teaching and learning, culture, talent management, planning and school operations, and then personal leadership and development. When we look at those 5 categories, it's important to understand that teaching and learning and school culture have the most direct impact on whether or not students achieve. So when we look at teaching and learning, that's high quality instruction that implements rigorous data driven instruction and truly ensures that kids are meeting the standards of mastery. School culture is the mission and vision and ultimately the high expectations that all stakeholders are held accountable to and that truly provide that foundation for student achievement. When we look at the other categories, talent management, planning and school operations, and personal leadership and development, we're really looking at that base that the principal puts in place in order to support learning and school culture. So, with talent management, that looks like hiring the best people to be in the classrooms or the correct staff in order to support student achievement and learning. For planning and school operations, this is everything from building a master schedule to every other piece of the day to day operations that ensures that all the pieces that are needed for learning and achievement are in place. And then with personal leadership and development, that is the leader remembering that they are a learner too, and they continuously need to develop themselves and learn new strategies so they don't become stagnant and can truly drive the work that is necessary because principals are absolutely fundamental in establishing that culture of improvement within a school. Now, if we want to connect this to the Texas Principal Evaluation and Support System, we're really looking at 3 different standards. You could probably go with all of them, but there's 3 that I'll highlight and then 2 that I will drive down into. Those standards are instructional leadership, which makes the argument that principals are responsible for ensuring that all students receive high quality and equitable learning experiences. Human capital, which is standard 2, where principals are responsible for ensuring that they are hiring high quality teachers and staff. And standard 4, which is school culture, where principals are responsible for establishing and implementing a shared vision and positive school culture that ensures high expectations for all stakeholders. So, digging deeper into the transformational leadership framework, we look at the stages of development. Research shows that there is a specific sequence of actions that a principal takes to improve schools, and it's key to follow those actions. One of the quotes from the Desravine's book that really stuck out to me was schools struggle if leaders jump ahead to implement higher order practices before foundational stages have been established. It reminds me of the old adage, you have to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. While there is a stage 0, there are 3 stage, which is indicative of a school that is in absolute chaos. The 3 key stages are the different levels that a principal must go through, including that crawling, walking, and then running. But it's also important to understand that this is not linear, that there are different indicators within those earlier 5 categories, and that you can be in different stages within those categories. But ultimately, when we look at the different stages, stage 1 are those foundational systems and structures that are just put into place to support that improvement. That includes monitoring progress, reinforcing transitions to the new systems, and providing those clear expectations, modeling, and definitions. Principals then in stage 2 start to shift to where they're developing teacher capacity for leadership. They're looking for teacher leaders, providing professional learning, giving opportunities for shared responsibility, and collaborating with them in planning and development of new structures and processes. And then stage 3 is where the principal has fostered a culture and environment of shared ownership throughout the school and within all stakeholders. This is when we truly see that the school's improvement and school mission and vision are truly sustainable across staff and leadership transitions, because ultimately we want that sustainability to go forward without the school devolving into chaos if a leader leaves or if a principal gets transitioned into a new role. It also builds student and staff capacity to drive the vision and mission and provides distributed leadership. So, in making a direct alignment between the TLF and the TPES standards, looking at instructional leadership in those indicators of rigorous and aligned curriculum and effective instructional practices, we can see that in the different stages, in stage 1, this is when the principal models effective unit planning, lesson planning, and provides feedback. In the school actions, this is common PLC time, professional learning, and teachers being expected to participate in using common structures and formats for unit and lesson planning. In stage 2, this looks like developing team and PLC leadership to review those unit plans and lesson plans and to evaluate whether or not they're truly aligned and rigorous. This is when the school sets up structures for team and PLC leads to review those, provide specific feedback, and conduct learning walks and give the feedback to the teachers. At stage 3, this is when the principal really becomes more of a facilitator and the whole staff collaborates in reviewing and evaluating curriculum and instruction and teaching practices. This is allowing for the teachers to determine the quality. The next place where there's a strong correlation with the TPES standards is school culture. The indicators that this hits is shared vision of high achievement, culture of high expectations, a safe school environment, and discipline. At stage 1, the principal would work with stakeholders to develop a list of behavioral expectations and developmentally appropriate responses. And the school would consistently implement those expectations and ensure that there are common practices and systems for responding to those behaviors. At stage 2, this would establish those appropriate expectations and create structures to implement the frequent teaching and reinforcement of those behaviors. And teachers and staff members would consistently hold students accountable to those behavior expectations and explicitly teach those behaviors and follow the structures and systems in place. And then lastly, at stage 3, we would leverage student leaders and build capacity within students to model and teach school values and behaviors and hold each other accountable, putting more on the kids. And teachers would support this process. In conclusion, principals have a direct impact on whether or not the school is a success or a failure, and it is their responsibility to ensure that they are creating the systems and processes that facilitate the growth and development of everyone within the school. They can do this by implementing the transformational leadership framework with fidelity, and in doing so, it will meet the Texas Principal Standards. My references are Breakthrough Principles and the Teacher, Principal, and Evaluation Support